Hi class, my name is Logan Baranowski and I am a teaching assistant for Dr. Raymond Maservi in IS 515. Today in this YouTube video, I'm going to be going over the final review. This file is found on Learning Suite and you can download it and follow along, or you can watch me as I do it, or you can do it before me and then just skip through to the points that you want to see. Whatever you do, that's fine. I'm just here to go over this review, and hopefully if you have any questions, you can send one of the TAs an email. Okay, and just to talk about the final exam, it will be open all throughout finals week, just like your midterm. It will be open whenever typical finals week starts, and it will close at midnight at the end of finals. You also download that on Learning Suite and submit it to your homework email just like you normally do. And then you will get emailed back your score. The final exam will look something like the midterm with these tabs along the bottom. You'll see different topics. Best way to review for the exam is to go over homework problems, go over your homework, go over your class files, and also go over the reviews and be able to do all the things quickly, and also know how to resource your textbook if you have any questions. Okay, so first we're going to start here with these financial formulas, and you have to kind of be careful because you'll want to make sure you read all of these prompts here. So it says your company is looking to invest in a new project. Cash flows from the project are expected at different points of each month. Use the IRR and XIRR functions to find the rate of return on the investment. Okay, so first I'm going to go say this is equal to IRR. When this pops up, it shows that there's actually some values. So you have to make sure you include your initial outlay and all the way through your ending outlay. It will notice that it'll see the different periods, and it's going to actually determine the internal rate of return. So if we highlight all of these, you can actually hit this FX to kind of see if you're curious about what's actually going on behind the scenes. You can put a guess in here because we said it's actually doing the step formulas that actually are guessing your formula. Every time you recalculate the sheet, this answer could get more and more correct and more accurate because it is more of an approximation since it's an iterative formula. So if you notice, it says is the number that you guess is close to the result of IRR 0.10, 10% if omitted. I'll just omit it, not a huge deal. Or maybe we think that it's going to be closer to 0.04. Whatever you put in there, it's still probably going to give you the same answer unless you're doing a large set of data. So hit OK, and we notice that pops up. OK, now we're going to use XIRR, and this one's a little different. It takes the values and the dates, so you have to make sure that these are actual dates, not just like a text formatted like a date. So we'll highlight the values, and we'll do a comma, and we'll put the dates in. And you have to make sure that these arrays, if you notice these arrays, is 6 to 11. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tall. You have to make sure that those arrays are equal. If they're not, you will probably have an error. So guess, again, we'll say it's probably around 0.04%. We'll close it out and we'll hit enter. And you'll notice that this is going to be a lot more different, but just make sure that you have correctly put these in here. You may also want to show some more percentage points. Just please do not round your information. The grader is probably going to be looking more for what types of formulas and what your inputs are and what your answer is. So do not control and copy paste values. Okay, so this next one, you are looking to purchase a bond and want to compare the present value you would get on two different bonds. Both will have a face value of $1,000 and an annual interest rate of 7%. Bond A will pay you $50 twice a year for 10 years, while bond B will pay $100 at the end of the year for 10 years. What is the present value of bonds? Okay. So first of all, I usually just put right here, I just say equal. We know we're going to use PV. A lot of these you'll see we're looking for the present value, so you just have to know what these values are. PV formula is for present value. I like to open it up like this so I can see what I'm actually typing in here. So rate, we want to see, so first of all, we can notice that this says there's an annual interest rate of 7%. Because of that, we don't want to divide our rate by anything else because it's actually only going to be calculated once per year. So we'll click on the percentage point here, and we'll notice that's 0.07. If it's ever 7, you may have to divide by 100, so keep that in mind. Your N per is going to be how many periods you're going to occur. So we see this is 10 years, and we know it's occurring once per year. So we notice that it's going to be 10 times 1, because 10 periods times 10 years times 1 time per year. Our payment is going to be $50 twice a year for 10 years, while bond B will pay $100 at the end of the year for 10 years. So we'll notice that, let's see, this right here is equal to $50. And the face value right here, or the future value, is going to be equal to $1,000 here. And actually, I believe that this is times 2, so it actually says that we're getting this done twice per year. Times 2. We also will need to actually divide this by 2. Just I noticed that it's actually says that it's going to be paying, bond A will pay twice a year for 10 years, so we have to have equal amounts there. So let's hit OK. And I think we have an issue here. I think I did something wrong here. B24. Oh. Time in years. Nope. Okay, that looks good. Okay. And for bond B, we will notice that bond B will pay $100 at the end of the year each year for 10 years. So we're going to do present value. Our rate is going to be 7% again. Our periods are 10. Our payment's going to be $100 this time, and the future value is going to be $1,000. And so we'll just notice that you can notice the difference to determine which is going to be a better outlay. Okay. So payment, $50. Okay, sorry, that's one mistake. Sorry, right there, because we only want to know what the payment is per each payment. So this actually should just be $50 per each payment. We have 20 periods here. Okay, so there we go. Okay, you just inherited $100,000 from a rich uncle and want to invest it. If you can put it in a portfolio that has a 5% annual return, how long will it take in years to reach $1 million? So make sure that you start to think about what type of formulas you're going to want to use. So you can reference your textbook or reference whatever, make some notes. This one's going to be N per. So we know, because we're looking for how many periods, right? So first we're going to look at B32 right here. So this is the interest rate. So right here, rate, we see that it's an annual return. So we're not going to be dividing this because it's a 5% over the whole time. The payments are going to be 0 because we're not wanting to put any money into this investment right here. Our present value is this initial outlay of negative $100,000. It's negative because we're saying we're giving out that money. Future value is going to be positive because that's how much money we want to have at the end. And then we'll hit OK. Okay, so we notice right here, this is going to be time in years. It's going to be 47.19 years. Using the same scenario from question 3, how much quicker would it reach to reach $1 million if you made annual payments of $3,000 at the end of each year? So if we go like this, I'm going to first just copy this formula because we're going to be using a lot of these same things. But we're going to be changing some things, right? So let's do equals that. Oops, extra equal sign here. Let's hit OK. A little easier to see. So we'll just want to make sure payments at the end of the period. So we can put a 0 in here. That was the default. So, okay. So we're saying the payment is going to be actually $3,000. So I'm just going to enter that in here. And then we'll just say is equal to that. And how much quicker would you reach the $1 million if you made annual payments of $3,000? So we'll notice that we made an error probably because this doesn't seem logical. Let's see, we did a rate of, we just need to make our payment negative here. And then we just want to take this, negative of this, plus our time here. And there you go. So you have a difference of 8.43 years. That means that that's going to be done that much sooner. Okay, next sheet we'll see here is the table. So it says you're looking to buy a new car. You want to calculate your monthly payment and how much interest you'd end up paying. The car you want to buy is $26,000, but interest rates have been changing. Fill in the following data table to show the change in interest rate. So every time that you want to highlight anything here, you'll want to make sure that you actually highlight the whole table. Now, you'll notice, and maybe I'll even make this mistake, is sometimes we select the wrong value to be auto-filled here. So when you're thinking about what's actually going to be changing here, we notice that we have some formulas up here at the top, and this is just what the data table formulas are expecting from us. We notice that as we change this amount here, 4.0%, that's what's actually changing that, okay? So this is what's actually going to be affected within our table here, okay? So as this amount changes here, it's going to change these values. And while it does that, it's going to copy and paste those values within this data table. And the nice thing about this formula is it's dynamic. So if you change these amounts at a later time, it will actually recorrect the data table. So let's first select the items here. And we will click on data, and we will click on what if analysis, and we'll click on data table. So we notice here that it's a row input cell is not the case. So we're saying which item is changing. Is it going to be the row or the column? So I'm going to select the column, and we're going to put this in here right here, and we're going to say that. We're going to hit OK. And you'll notice that this starts to fill out. So sometimes people think, okay, I don't know if this is correct. First, let's just change the formatting so we can see this a little bit easier. You'll notice that if we change these amounts here, 4%, we should be able to get the same answer here, right? Because this is what's actually being affected. You'll see right here, right here, right here, okay? 5.5, same thing. Let's check the 5.5%. We see 496.63, 496.63, 496.63. That allows you to check your answer and just double check what you're doing just to make sure that you actually enter that in correctly. If you accidentally select the wrong thing, you'll notice that, say you want to delete this, it will say you can't change that a part of the data table. You actually have to select the whole thing because it does also have these lovely array type formulas, and you'll just have to click delete on that, and that will help you delete the whole thing. Okay, and I'll just undo that so we leave our answers there. Okay, our next table, we're going to be looking at some lookups. And it's very important to pay attention here because there are a few things that you may not be familiar with. Okay, so first of all, it says use VLOOKUP to return the following values for the individual in the drop-down menu and cell. Okay, so this is saying, obviously it has the different names here, and it's saying, okay, use VLOOKUP. So make sure you're using VLOOKUP, not an index, not a lookup, VLOOKUP, okay? And we want to use our lookup value is going to be our first name. And then we want to look at our table array. So we have to select wherever this is going to appear in the first column. If I select these, it means it's only going to be looking through the last names for my values that I'm going to be picking up. So we're actually going to look at first name. And I usually just copy the whole thing just in case I need to use it at a later time. I also absolute both of these just because I think that that's just a better way to do that, especially with VLOOKUPs. Our column index number, it's saying, okay, once we find this first name, where is the answer? So we see 1, 2, 3. Okay, we want to use ID number, and that's number column 3. And then we want to do a false because what the true does is it's an approximation. So it actually works through alphabetically and says, hey, if I can't find it, so say you have something in, for example, let's see how we have Harry, Ginny, Draco. If we say true and it's looking for Draco, it's going to be going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Oh, I passed D, so it's obviously going to be whatever was close here. So let's go 1 before that, and it would actually select the first name and select the ID number. So we want to do false because we want the exact ID number. If it can't find it, it's just going to give us an error, okay? So we can check here, Harry Potter, G001, and it looks good, okay? And we can check this by, let's look at Draco, S102, that's good. And let me just show you what happens if we select true here. You'll actually notice that it says it can't find it. There's an error because it can't see how these are alphabetized correctly. So let's just change that back to false because that's how we want to use this. Okay. And then we're going to look up the occupation. So there's two ways you can do this. You can look it up off the first name, or you can look it up off the ID number. I'm going to look it up off the ID number just so you can see how we do that, okay? So let's do VLOOKUP. But our lookup value is going to be our ID number, and our table array is going to be from the ID numbers over, because it has to be the most left column, and we want to show their occupation. So it's going to be over 3 columns, and we want to do false. We'll hit enter. Ministry of Magic employee Draco. Okay, that's perfect. Now let's just check Neville. Just make sure G002. Let me look, Neville G002, herbology professor, and that looks like we've done the right thing. Okay, so let's look at something else. So the lookup table, kind of going back to that true-false scenario, the way that lookup tables work is it always works on a true type basis. So when you use lookups, you have to remember that your lookups have to be in alphabetical order. So let me say that one more time. Your lookups must be in alphabetical order. So, and I believe there's an error in this, so let's just do this. So let's do a lookup. And our lookup value is going to be Granger. And our lookup vector is going to be here, because this is where we're looking for it. And our result vector is going to be what we're trying to return. So we're wanting to return the gender, okay? So let's close that out. And let's look at Granger. Okay, so it says we've got an issue here. It's because these are not in alphabetical order. It starts going looking for this Granger, and it goes A, B, C, D, P. Wait a second, there's no G here, and it's going to error out. So you'll actually notice, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight all of this. Or actually, you can even just highlight this top layer here. I'm going to do Control-Shift-L, and that adds I'll do that. I'm going to sort A to Z, and oh, voila, did you notice that? Magically, it's now working here, okay? And you'll actually notice that because these are now set up this way, we can actually sort, we can actually use the lookup formula. Otherwise, it's going to error out. But like I said, this lookup must be in alphabetical order for it to work. Okay. So now we're going to use the match and index to fill in the first name based on ID number. So the reason we use match and index is it's a lot more powerful, because you can use approximations, you can use matches, you can specify certain columns on different tables. Than a VLOOKUP requires a little more CPU processor power, but all in all, it's something that everyone should be familiar with, especially for the exam. So I always think of these, and I always think index match. So because you have to first use the index formula, okay, index, and we have to say our array. So I like to select the whole thing. You don't have to, just a personal preference of mine, okay? And I'm going to hit F4 because I don't want that to change as I copy this down, okay? Now what it's going to say is it's going to be looking for the row number, okay? And we're going to be, I don't know what row number we're going to be in, so that's why we're using the match formula, okay? So let's use the match formula, and our lookup value is going to be this ID right here, okay? So by using this ID number, it's going to determine, so we're also going to say the lookup array, so we're going to look up for G001 within this array here, okay? So what it's going to do is it's going to return actual row number out of this array here and return a specific value. So if you notice here, I'm also going to say F4 on those because I don't ever want this to change. I do, however, want the ID to change as I copy it down, okay? And you'll notice you can do a less than exact match or greater than. That kind of goes back to the true-false principle. Typically, you'll want, but I'm going to want an exact match. Oops, let's do a 0 for that, okay? And then you'll notice we're now back out of our match, and we want to determine which column number. So we have our array here, and we want to determine the first name. So it's going to be the first column, okay? So let's do a 1. We'll close that, and we'll hit enter, and we'll look at Harry, CG001, G001, Harry Potter. Okay, perfect. Now I want to show you one more thing just because I think it's a little more helpful. So maybe you want to be able to change whether this says first name, last name, gender, occupation, okay, like we had up here, how this was a drop-down menu. We can actually just use another, we can use just another match formula. Rather than hard coding a 1 in here, we can actually use a match by going like this, match, and our lookup value is going to be this top value. Now this time I'm going to I'm going to hit F4. And I'm going to lock it on this cell because I never want this to change as I copy it down. Our lookup array is going to be in this array right here. Okay, let's hit oh my goodness, F4, not F5. Okay, and we're going to say we want an exact match, and we'll close that, and we'll hit enter. And ta-da, you'll notice that it's actually is still the same thing. However, now if I put in last name, ta-da, it's now changing because it's actually using this value within our formula up here and matching the column number as well. Okay, now let's go to the text formula. So I hope that all of you are very comfortable using text formulas. You'll want to make sure you are for the exam because there will be text formulas, and you want to make sure that you do this all correctly, okay? So since you add some new data music files to your computer and want to include them in your Excel playlist, when you copy the file names to Excel, you get the following data. Using text to columns, sort the data into the correct cells. Okay, so using text to columns, so we need to actually take this right here. Let's highlight this, and we're going to go to data, and we're going to hit text to columns, and we're going to say delimited because we notice that there's actually a dash between every one of these items here, okay? So let's hit next, and we actually want to not use a tab or a space. We notice that there's a dash there, so let's hit like that, and you'll notice that it actually starts to preview what it's going to do with the data, okay? So let's hit next, and this is a number. If you want to keep it as 0, 1, let's just change it to a text, and just remember that you can change each one of those. I'm just going to change them all to text because they are text and they're not a number. So, okay, our destination, let's put them here in D5, and let's hit finish. And there's already data here. You want to place it? Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we have these 3 columns. So what this is saying is using the new data, reformat the names using the format so the artist has spaces, not an underscore. The .m4a is removed from the song name. Everything is properly capitalized and there are no excess spaces. Okay, so what I'm going to first do is I am going to take this data right here, and I'm going to say it's equal to this right here, okay? So let's go like this. First of all, I want to trim any beginning and ending spaces, okay? Because I just think that's important to do because I notice that there's some spaces here and there may be some spaces down here, okay? Let's copy that down, and it's going to copy down correctly because it's just doing a relative reference there. Okay, so we also want to do a, let's see, we also want to substitute the underscore for a space, right? So let's put a substitute. Our text is after we trim it. The old text we're looking for, right here is the underscore. The new text is going to be that, like that. And the instance number we're going to leave blank because we want it to apply to all of the underscores, not just one of them. We'll hit OK, and ta-da, you'll notice that that's fixed. We also have some weird M's and S's in here, okay, for capitalization. So basically, for proper capitalization, you might have your things formatted with all caps. I think let's just use proper. There's a nice function here, and basically it says take the space, and at the beginning of every word, let's just capitalize those, okay? Hit enter, and let's copy that down, and you'll notice that we fixed all those. Okay, so now let's work on the song titles, okay? So you'll notice we'll probably want to do some similar things here, okay? So first I'm going to trim. I want to take all the spaces off, the beginning and the end, okay? Then I also am going to do a proper on this. Okay. And we'll paste all those. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to get rid of the M4A. There's a few ways you can do this. I'm going to use the left formula. You may use a different formula. You actually could use a substitute because we know that all of them have .m4a at the end. And we could just substitute it for a blank, but I'm just going to use the left formula because I want to make sure that you all know how to do that. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a formula right here because I want to make sure I know how to do it, okay? So first I'm going to find, what am I going to find? I want to find .m4a within text, this guy right here. Okay. What that's going to do, we've got an error here. Maybe we have to take that off. Find text within text. Maybe because it's, oh, there we go. Okay, it is case sensitive. So maybe we'll just turn this to search so it's not case sensitive. Okay. So what we'll notice is actually showing where it's going to start, okay? So this is saying at point 14, that's where this string starting that we want to start. So if we want to say left, we want to say left from starting at 1 to 14, right? So the beauty of this one is it's just going to be, it's pretty simple. I'm going to put it right here because I want to make sure that I do it correctly before I copy it into my other formula, okay? Let's look at this, our left, and our number of characters is going to be that, okay? And you'll notice that that wasn't quite the case, okay? So, and let's just copy this down just to see what we've got here, okay? Because what it does, and you notice it's always an extra 2. So what it's doing is it's saying finding where this is beginning, which is actually going to be here, but we only want to go this many characters. So let's try this by taking off 1, and we still have a dot there. Let's take off 2, and that gives us the correct answer. Let's copy that down. Okay, and so now we want to do it on this. So we're going to say the left of the text. Our number of characters is going to be 5, or let's use search. And then we want to find m4a dot m4a. Oh, because we didn't use the dot, that's why it was -2. m4a within text. We know that we're using F5, so let's just put F5 in here. And let's close that. And then we want to subtract 2, because we're subtracting off from where the M is and the dot. Close that off, and like that. And oops, let's put that in like that. And let's copy that down. And everything almost worked out except for this issue down here. It's hard to say what happened here. .m4a. Actually, a few of these that had some issues. That's a little odd. timshell.m4a. Let's take a look and see what's going on here. Oops. Okay, let's evaluate this. So first it's going to trim timshell like that. Corrects it to timshell, search for m4a. Oh, okay. So what's happening is we actually want to put, rather than using F12 or something here, we actually need to use this corrected version of the text here, okay? So let's copy and paste that, and I'm just going to paste that right in where we have M5 here, okay? Let's copy that down. It looks like I took one too many off. Let's do one like that. And ta-da! Okay. Create a mega formula that returns the first monetary value in the following string or similarly formatted strings. As a huge hint, do the mega formula problem first. Okay, let's take that hint. Okay. So what we're going to be doing is we're literally just going to be copying and pasting these values in. Create a mega formula in cell C11 that will return the first monetary value of the text in C4, shown in the example. Okay. So first I'm going to copy this over like this, because this is the formula we're going to be using here. Okay, except for, let's do this one first, and then we can actually just copy it over to here. First of all, we want to take A8 and A9. Okay, so what does A8 equal to? We'll paste A8 into here. Okay, should still give us the same value. And now we'll notice that green, so we want to make sure that we're only referencing this blue cell up here. So basically you just need to keep substituting until those are all gone. So we're going to be using this right here. All my values here. Okay. Let's hit OK. Looks like it's still OK. Now we need to use A8. Let's copy A8 again. Okay, and I like to put parentheses around each one of mine. That. What are we still referencing? A7. Okay. Oops. And we're referencing it a few times, so let's just do that. Uh-oh. Oh, it looks like I left something there. Okay, and now we just need to fix A6. Parentheses. Oops, gonna make sure that we're putting the whole formula in there. A6. I just chopped off fine, so I'm just fixing that. Okay, so now if you notice when we click on this, it's only using this one cell. It's called a mega formula because there's a lot of intermediate cells here that we're no longer using. So we should be able to copy this here, paste that here, and we've got an issue. So I'm guessing that one of our references was absolute. So we actually don't want it to be absolute to A4. So if you notice how this is saying A4, so whether you copy it over, it's going to always be referencing A on number 4. So let's just delete all these. Okay. We're just going to make them relative references like this. Paste, copy, paste. Ta-da! 25,493. Go back to this formula here. Let's see, create a mega formula. Okay, so basically we just need to make the reference be B37 here. So let's take this. We're going to copy this whole thing. We're going to say is equal to this. It's not going to be right because we need to change this reference cell C4. Let's just drag it down here, just kind of one of the tricks that you can use. And oops, let's keep fixing these. So we want all of them to be referencing this particular cell. Okay. And we'll hit enter and ta-da, there you go. Okay, and so we've done the mega formulas tab as well. Let's go to the summing table. So you'll want to make sure that you're up to par on summing because, like I said, all of these topics will appear on the exam, and you want to make sure that you know how to do them. Okay. Comfortable with counting and using array formulas to do that counting. Okay, so first of all, let's look at this. How many cells are in the table, not including headers? Okay. So we can do one of two things. So first of all, I'm actually going to make this into a table. I'm going to hit Control A, but if you notice, it actually selects this top row, so that's not going to work for us. Let's do Control Shift right, Control Shift down, and that's going to highlight our table here. I'm going to do Control T, or you can do Insert Table right here. Okay. Now let's say my table has headers. Okay. So how many cells are in the table, not including headers? So we only want to look at this value down here, okay? So what can we do? There's a few things we can do. We can do count the number of cells that have values, but it's actually going to be count A because we want to make sure that it counts all things. We're going to use, oops, we need to also know what our table is named here. Let's just call it table 1, okay, just to make sure. So let's do count A, table 1, okay, and let's hit enter. That's 450. We can quickly check that by, let's see, we have 30 down and 15 over, right? 30 times 15, okay, 450. We can do another way. We can go like this. We can say to the rows, returns the number of rows in an array or reference, what we're going to actually be looking at is our table 1. Notice that it highlights everything except for the headers, okay? Times our columns, not columns, table 1. Okay. And there you go. That's your answer right there. You can also go like this and say is equal to rows of table 1. And it doesn't matter what you pick as long as you pick one of these columns. Let's pick a column like that. And then we'll say times, oops, we'll close that, times columns. And it does actually matter. You do have to select the header row here. So what you can actually do is you can just select something up here and you'll notice it'll say headers. But you actually just want to have the header selected. So let's just delete all that out. Okay, and we only need to have one here, like this. Goes that, and you'll notice it actually selects the headers. Also, another way you can do this, if you just do it like that, and let's highlight, just show that it's just the headers. Okay, there's a few ways to do that. Just kind of keep in mind, if we want to show everything, including the headers, we can actually use count A, and we can use table 1. Except for this time, we want to use pound, and we want to say all. Okay, and what that does, that selects everything, including the headers. Okay, so that gives us 465, which is an extra 15. Okay. Without sorting the data, what is the sum of the 5 highest total bases? So you have to make sure that you're familiar with these different formulas. And without sorting the data, what is the sum of the highest total of the 5 highest total bases? What you could do is you could sort the data to check your answers. That's what I would do if I was taking the test. But we won't do it here because I want to show you how to do it correctly. Okay. So first of all, we're going to use sum. Okay. And we want to use large. Okay. Because what large does is it will return, what it says right here is returns the k to the largest value in a data set. For example, the 5th largest number. However, you can actually put an array and sum up a certain value because we are using a sum here. Okay, so we're going to use large, and our array is, if you notice, this is the 5 highest total bases. So we'll find total bases here, and I'm going to hover over like this so it highlights just the values because I only want to look at the values. I don't want to include this header here. And then here we're actually going to put some values in here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In an array type formula. I'm going to close it up, and ta-da, 1257. So what I might do is I might go like this, and let's sort these. What does this say? The 5 highest. So let's go like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 2, 5, 7. Okay, perfect. If I also want to do this again for the smallest, you can actually just swap this out for small instead of large. Okay, and we can check that by looking at our top 5 here. Okay, 10172, perfect. How many teams have at-bats greater than 5,500 and slugging percentage less than 0.425? So what I'm going to use is a sum if, okay? You could actually use a sum ifs, or excuse me, a count ifs, because this is an and, okay? So I'll show you how to do both just to make sure that we know that we're doing the same thing, okay? So we're going to do sum if and our logical test. So first of all, the logical test is the team bats has to be greater than 5,500. Okay, so I'm going to highlight the at bats has to be greater than 5,500. Okay, and let's close that off. And I'm actually going to put this in its own parentheses just to make sure we keep it correct. And it says they both have to be true. So we're going to times it by this because it's saying that they both have to be true. If it were a plus, that means that whether it's true or false, only one of these conditions actually has to be true. Okay. So when it's saying and the slugging percentage is less than 0.425. Okay. And less than 0.25. Okay. Let's just make sure these are in their own parentheses just to make sure we do this correctly. Okay. All right, and we're saying what's the value of true is 1, meaning that we want to count it if it's true. If that condition is true. If not, we want it to be 0. Okay, let's do Control-Shift-Enter, and we have 10. Because it's an and, I was saying we could use a count ifs, okay? Let's use a count if. So our criteria range number 1 is going to be at bats and has to be greater than 5,500. And our criteria 2 is the slugging percentage has to be less than 0.425, right? You notice there's an error. So if the weird thing with count ifs, you'll notice that with these greater than or less than, we just have to do a weird thing and we just have to concatenate them together. And for whatever reason, that makes it work. Okay. So we'll just go like this, and we'll put these in quotes. Oops, let me put a comma here. Like that. And ta-da, we have 10. Okay, so there's 2 ways to solve that. How many teams have at-bats greater than 5,500 or a slugging percentage less than 0.425? Because this is an or, we will have to use some ifs, okay? So we're going to use some if, and our condition is going to be a little bit different. So first I'm going to put a parenthesis because I want to make sure this is correct. So at-bats has to be greater than 5,500. This time I'm going to use a plus because it's saying or. So only one of these has to be true, that specific row, okay? So we're going to say or a batting average here. Oh, slugging percentage, excuse me. Then 0.25. And if that's true, I want to give you a 1. If it's false, I want to give you a 0. And we'll close it out and Control-Shift-Enter. And we'll notice that our answer is 30. So just make sure you know how to do that formula. Okay, how many teams have more than 30 triples or 150 home runs and a batting average of 0.27? So we're saying either this or this has to be true for a specific team, and they have to have a batting average less than 0.27. Okay, so we're going to do some if, kind of like a pause there to make sure that's 2 separate formulas there. And we're going to do some if, and we will say, okay, so teams have to have, so I'm going to make a parenthesis here. And I'm actually going to make another parenthesis because I want to keep these separate, okay? So they have to have greater than 30 triples. So let's go to triples. It has to be greater than 30. Or home runs greater than 150. Oops, like this. Greater than 150. Oops, I'm going to put my parentheses around here because I want to make sure these stay separate, okay? And then, so we're saying either this or this has to be true, multiplied by whether something by our third condition is going to be true. And a batting average is greater than 20.27 right here. 0.27. I'm going to put these in parentheses because I don't, like I said, I get really worried about order of operations in here. And you have to make sure that it's done correctly. Okay, value of true is 1. Value not of true is 0. Okay, close this out, hit enter. And I think I made a mistake in here. So let's just see where I made a mistake. Home runs greater than 150. No, I actually think that and batting average. Okay, I think actually in the answer guide we have the wrong answer. So I believe this is the correct answer, 19 here. Okay, so now we're going to go on to miscellaneous calculations. Some of these you'll probably never use again. I'm actually not going to go, I will go over these, but I wouldn't suspect that these will be on your final because I don't believe that we went over them too much in class. and I just don't really see the significance of using these that much, okay? But you will want to make sure you know how to do this. Okay, so first we're going to use convert. So we're going to say convert, and our number is going to be 22. And we can actually, we have to say from what. So we're saying we want to convert it from miles to kilometers. So you can actually search through here. If you know what they are going to be, you can actually just type them in. And we want to translate those to kilometers, okay? And we want to do 15 yards cubed. And we want to make sure those go to feet cubed, okay? So just kind of keep an eye on, make sure you know what your units are. So we'll use convert again. And our number is going to be 15 from unit. And let's look through these, okay? I don't remember which one it is. Let's see. Yard. Okay, we want to go from cubic yard to cubic feet. Okay, close that out. We've got 405. And TB, we want to do 3 cups. How many tablespoons? So we'll do convert. Might use this during cooking more so. And then let's look up what cups are. And just to see, because you want to make sure that you type these in correctly, because you may think something is one thing, but it's not. Up. And we want to convert it to tablespoon. Okay, and that's 48. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go on to my favorite, VBA. You want to make sure that you've practiced what we've done in class and also what's done here on the review. So first of all, we're going to say create a macro that does the following to any cell. Makes the font bold, makes the fill light green, makes the font size 16 times New Roman. Assign the following shortcut Control-H. To record any macro, you can click on this button down here at the bottom. However, I like to make sure I have the developer tab because there are some settings that you may want to do. You notice I don't have the developer tab here to show you how to add it to your worksheet. So let's click on File, Options, Customize Ribbon, Developer. Okay, we click on Developer, click OK, and now we have this Developer tab. So we're actually going to click on, we want to record a macro, but we want to use relative references because it says we want this to work on any cell. So if I click on here and don't use relative references, it's only going to work on F8, okay? So we want it to work on whatever cell is relative. So we're going to record it with F8, but if we go here, we want it to say move over offset by 1, 2, 3 cells and actually apply that macro to this cell. So first we're going to do this. We're going to click like this. I'm going to say use relative references, and I'm going to hit click record macro, okay? So it doesn't say that we have to name the macro or anything, so I'm just going to macro 1. We want to put a control key shortcut in here, and it has to be Control-H. Now, just be aware that you can do Control-Shift-H. Oops, this should let me Control-Shift. Maybe not. Okay, well, usually you can do Control, okay? Oh, if you do Shift-H, it'll do Control-Shift-H. But this one, we want it to be a lowercase h, so we're just going to do a little lowercase h. Okay, we want to start this macro here. We can put a description in here if we want. Test macro or review, and we'll click OK. There's already a macro assigned, probably because I have this macro saved. Let's just put this to Y, maybe. We'll click that. Okay, so we want to make the font bold, so let's click here. And let's click bold. Okay, and we want to make the fill light green. Okay, is this light? Yeah, that's fine. Make the font size 16 and Times New Roman. Okay, test your cell in F8. Okay, so let's click data. Oops. So now you can either click stop down here, or we can go back to the developer tab and click stop recording. Okay. So we'll notice that made it bigger, made it green, made the font Times New Roman. Okay, perfect. Our next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a user-defined function named direction that uses the select case method to change the following abbreviations. Now, we didn't go over the select case in class, so I'm actually just going to use if statements because I do believe we did go over those in class. So this time we're not going to record a macro. We're actually going to open up Visual Basic. You can get there by going Alt F11, or you can click on the Developer tab and then click on Visual Basic. Okay. So we're going to add a module. Okay. You may or may not have a module already, but you should have one if you've already recorded your macro here. We're in the final review. Okay, not the answers, but the review. And we want to click on the module and we want to say insert module. Okay. Within this module, we're going to be defining functions. So you can put comments by putting the apostrophe here. So I'm just going to put an apostrophe and say, this is a macro for my exam, just so I know for future notice. You do not have to actually put anything in there or any comments because we're not going to read those. Okay. So I'm also going to put option explicit at the top because I want to make sure that this formula works explicitly and exactly the way that I have recorded it to. Okay, so first of all, to define a function, you have to call it function. Okay, so this function is going to be named direction because we get that from here. So we're going to call this direction, and we want it to be able to pass some sort of abbreviation. Okay. So it says if done properly, the blue boxes will populate with the correct answers. So we can actually click out here and we'll know direction C17. This should work, okay? Oops. So let's go back to our Visual Basic here. And we want to say what we're putting in here, okay? So we have to say we're going to be putting some sort of string because that's going to be the abbreviation in the inside. So we're going to call this abbreviation. Oops. You can call this whatever you want. It's just easier for you. So when you actually click on the formula, we can see what it is. And we're going to say this as string. And then we want to know what the output's going to be, okay? The output is going to be done as a string as well, okay? And you'll notice it actually starts filling in this in function. So eventually we need to set the direction equal to something, okay? But what we're going to do first is we're going to say if. So we're going to pass through this abbreviation, okay? So we're going to say if abbreviation is equal to north, then, oops, and you can tab this however you want, direction, which is our formula, that's the output, is equal to north, else if abbrev is equal to south, then, whoops, and you want to make sure, if you mess up on the else, it'll remind you. So let's do that. Else if, it's all one word. Direction is equal to south. Else if abbrev is equal to east, then direction is equal to east. Else if abbreviation is equal to west, then direction is equal to west. Else meaning that if it's not N, S, E, or W, direction equals not a direction. Okay. And then we want to make sure we end our if statement like that, end if like that. And I'm also going to put up here application volatile, oops, application, excuse me. Okay. So here, let's hit refresh on here, and it says variable not defined. And that's because I made a mistake here, and that's ABREV. Okay, and if you make a mistake like I did, well, you can fix it, and once you do that, you can just click play. Okay. And you'll notice that these all actually corrected themselves. So you'll notice we also put in there if there's an issue, it's going to say not a direction. So TH, oh, not a direction. Just because some of you will ask, I'm going to show you how to use the select case. We're just going to call it a different function just to make sure. So we're going to call it function direction1, abbreviation as string. Our output is going to be string. Okay, let's do that. Application volatile, true. Okay, we're going to say select case of abbreviation. And then we'll say case equals, let me just make sure that I'm telling you guys this right. I don't use the case as often. Okay, oops. So we're going to say case is an n. Oops. Then, oops. Then direction1 is equal to north. Case of east, direction1 is equal to south. Case west, direction1 is equal to west. Case south, whoops, I think I made a mistake here. Direction 1 is equal to east, and then we also have to end this, and we have to say end select. And I'm pretty sure I made a mistake here. Let's fix that. Direction. Okay. So now you'll notice we have direction and direction1. Let's make sure that these are correct. Whoa. Actually, I didn't define anything for these optional ones, but you can do that. But north, south, west. Okay. And that's the end of the exam. If you have any questions, please contact the TAs or Dr. Messervy. We're really excited for you guys, and congratulations on getting this far in the semester.